Peace, everyone, and welcome to this edition of March 4th, looking at 5 letters from Father Divine that focus especially on themes of democracy. Before we get into the letters, I would like to give a little bit of introductory material, clarify a few terms that are used. Father uses the word ultimo, referring to a date in several of these letters. Ultimo means simply last month. If someone writes the 4th, ultimo, they mean the 4th of the preceding month. That's somewhat old-fashioned now and seldom seen. You'll also hear in the letters a general use of the word man for all humanity, and general masculine pronouns he and him when referring to a hypothetical person. Of course, this was conventional in the time period, and Father tends to do that with a general audience, but he doesn't necessarily do that with the Peace Mission audience or a follower audience. Particularly in the earlier years, Father will use phrases like so-called man, so-called woman, or those in the masculine expression, those in the feminine expression. Father does not essentialize gender in the same way that he does not essentialize race. It is not a quality of the spirit, but is rather something that is socially constructed, a product of mind that people collaborate on together in society that produces certain effects. And for Father, these kinds of differences, ultimately racial, religious, national, gender, all of these differences ultimately create division. And so the goal of spirituality is unity or oneness, both within the individual and between the divine soul and the individual expression and the physical body, but also between individuals within society, within institutions of society like churches and political organizations, families, but also broadly, all the society of a nation, which Father is particularly concerned with in these letters, American democracy, but universalized, the principles of democracy made real and tangible in one's life, in groups, in society, at the national level, and by contagion or resonant influence, then globally, internationally, universally. If you're someone like me who finds the term Americanism or the use of patriotic symbols like the flag somewhat alienating because of your individual experience or the experience of ancestors, or simply what you hear, what you know about the experience of others presently or in the past within the borders of this country, be aware that when Father Divine refers to Americanism, he's really referring to ideals of equality, of right use, of real social justice made tangible and actual. He's always talking about these things made real and tangible. He's not simply flag waving or talking about respectability politics or drawing attention to things like 4th of July and so forth in order to toot the American horn. He is doing this in reference to those high ideals and making those real. And he does say that the ideals of real Americanism are synonymous with the ideals of real Christianity, which are synonymous with the ideals of real Judaism, which are synonymous with the ideals of real Buddhism. He makes all of those very specific claims of synonymous relationship between the real forms. So what he's talking about there is basically the golden rule and equality and the right use of things within a sacred understanding, whether that is called God or truth or beauty in the true high sense of beauty, justice, whatever the ideal is, it is divine in its origin, and it has the capacity to reformulate individuals and societies when they focus on it. And for those who are awake to the presence and inspiration of the God realized or the incarnate God, then you get it all in the package, lived out and expressed in a way that you can understand in your cultural climate, in your language, at a particular time and place. And note that Father does often qualify some of these things, Americanism, Christianity, his followers, by prefacing it with real or true, acknowledging that there are those who claim these things who do not make any effort to make the ideals real in practice. And for the follower of Father Divine, the student of Father Divine, when you are actually making them real in practice, then you are being virtuous. Virtue means to make the ideal real and tangible. Not just talk about it, not just think about it, not just meditate on it, but the real virtue is in translating it into reality, making it something real. And for Father Divine, that is almost always translated into social virtue, something that is real and contagious in a social arena. With business, for example, it would also include what Father calls evangelical pricing, trying to make things available to all people at the lowest possible price, without profiteering and exploiting and so forth. That's a real virtue translated into action, and it is what Father calls real evangelism. Sometimes you'll also hear Father refer to millions and millions of followers, and that's certainly not the enrolled members of the Peace Mission movement, or even the number of people who were receiving his message in the 1930s and 40s. At the very peak of the Peace Mission, there were probably about 40,000 people directly participating in some way, not necessarily as followers within the extensions, but in affiliated businesses, as cooperators, and so forth. And it appears that the maximum reach of Father's nominal following, those who would have called themselves followers, is probably somewhere around 144,000. Of course, that number has significance, and that will come up many times as we explore these letters and other Peace Mission sources, but it really is within the range of those who were hearing and receiving the message, knowing Father's name and his face, and receiving the new day and that sort of thing. But when Father refers to millions and millions, he's referring to people who are have the inner connection with God and don't necessarily know him by that name, but who have the connection with God or with a divine ideal and are translating it into actuality. That is a true follower. They may not know his name, they may not even call it God, but they're in touch with the real ideal of divine justice, for example, and they're trying to bring that to reality in their lived expression. So be aware of that. We're going to see in these 1940s letters, these World War II letters especially, that Father refers to Hitlerism at home and abroad. And what he's referring to there is especially authoritarianism and militant racism. An interesting point that will come up in these letters and in others in the future is the Peace Mission practice of restitution of debt, one of all just debt. Not that all debt is just, but when someone has entered a contract in the past and walked away from that, when they have converted to Father Divine's teachings, they will generally try to go back and make that debt right. And if they can't do it to the person that they were indebted to originally, then they will make that as a donation, or during the war effort, contribute it to the federal treasury, something like that. And that's a very usual thing that Father Divine inspired. He inspired many thousands of people to return millions, cumulatively millions and millions of dollars over the years. Interestingly, he wasn't asking them to give it to him. You will hear some preachers say, if you've done something like that in the past, donate it to the church, give it to God. Father didn't say that. He didn't say, give it to me, give it to the church, give it to God. He said, give it to God by giving it back to the person it's owed to. And if you can't do that, then give it in charity or to the federal treasury for the general public good. We'll also hear Father refer to 32 lynch mobs that he experienced in the very early years of his mission, which would have been from the late 19th century. He refers to the time when Jim Crow came into being after the Civil War in the South, and that was especially in the 1870s and beyond. And so in the late 19th century and in the early 20th century, before Father was widely known publicly, it was the case that he traveled in the South, on foot and by various means, and he endured various kinds of persecution from various different groups. It wasn't always racialized, although it seems that predominantly it was. Sometimes it was ministerial instigation, or husbands of converted wives, and so forth. So when Father refers to 32 lynch mobs, he was the victim of prejudice, and he says that he was enduring this physically in his body, always victorious, in order to establish a truer standard of democracy. So God enters into this world, into the mindscape in which we live, and enacts certain teachings, parables, sacred pastimes. And those have a resonant effect. And that's like a contagion. That is like a virus that spreads, or a resonant effect like the sound of a bell that can vibrate nearby things, or like a stone dropped into a pond that will create ripples going out and all the way to the edge eventually of the pond. And so Father's often speaking of that kind of contagious effect that his spirit has on individuals in the world and on the society at large, and on himself as a catalyst, as a divine force entering the world in order to spark what becomes enormous public change over time. And we'll see many examples of that as things go on, but just think about the fact that Father Divine and the Peace Mission introduced and popularized the greeting peace. When you hear that, let yourself be aware of the fact that that is a resonant impact of Father Divine on the world by people who don't even draw that connection, but it's there and continues to grow. And ultimately it is a message of hope, because the message is that good can triumph over evil, especially when the good are unified within and without, and acting to magnify the good, to make the good real and to magnify it in the world of expression. So that's the little introduction, and I thank you for your patience there, and thank Father and Mother Divine. Peace.
Peace. January the 31st, 1944 AD-FD. Father Divine writing to Mr. Foreman J. Williams of New Brunswick, New Jersey. My dear Mr. Williams, I have your letter of the 28th that acknowledges the receipt of $15 by a follower of mine, Miss Wonderful Peace. The contributions my followers are making to private and public institutions have gone far in helping them build up their activities that benefit the needy. Millions of dollars are given annually by the followers as a means of clearing their debts. Yet the value in moral cooperation far exceeds the monetary or physical help given, for the moral cooperation is the fundamental basis of advancement of post-war peace and prosperity. Without it, you can see that there could be no peace among men. Sound moral principles are the only weapons by which we can defeat the enemy, Hitler and his ally. Since we know that Christianity and the synonymous doctrine of democracy are the supreme laws of government, our only hope to preserve them is to live them, to put them into action in our lives. What could Hitler do, or what could Tojo do, if we, the people of a democracy, fulfilled our standards of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence? What could they do if we, united as one people, in reality? Why, they would not have a chance. They would lay down their weapons of war and surrender immediately, and it is not a supposition, it is a positive fact. As my spirit enlightens the people to the true concepts of democracy, as it is seen, millions have been converted to the cause and live wholeheartedly for it. Well, just as I spiritually conquered the Hitleristic characteristics of hate, prejudice, graft, greed, and aggression in the hearts of men individually, and caused them to surrender to the Christ life and the teaching of brotherhood, so shall I conquer Hitler abroad. The true principles of democracy are yet foreign to the masses because they have been taught wrong. Our schools of education may somewhat stress our great principles of government, but they teach division when they refuse to unify one so-called race with another. And their deeds mean more than what they teach in books. Hence, the masses do not live democracy as the Constitution declares it, and that is why I say the people are foreign to the true American way of life. But I am bringing the people back to the fundamental standards of the law. I do not restore them by reform methods, but I lift them up by a spiritual transformation of heart and mind. I give them the spirit of the law, fulfilling the request of Abraham Lincoln, who prayed that this nation under God might have a new birth of freedom. This is it by which I am producing among millions as I cause them to live democracy, by imbibing the nature and the characteristics of it. As the masses everywhere get the spirit of the law, democracy shall spread throughout the land as a great contagion, and the people shall become to be as this leaves me, as I am well, healthy, joyful, peaceful, lively, loving, successful, prosperous, and happy, in spirit, body, and mind, and in every organ, muscle, sinew, joint, limb, vein, and bone, and even in every atom, fiber, and cell of my bodily form. Respectfully and sincere, I am the Reverend M.J. Divine, better known as Father Divine. Peace. July the 3rd, 1943 AD-FD. Father Divine writing to Mr. H.A. Southard of Los Angeles, California. My dear Mr. Southard, I have your letter of the 28th ultimo in appreciation of the desirable efforts of one of my followers, Mr. Universal Praise. By causing the people to live in the conscious recognition of the presence of God, I have created a new spirit and a new mind within them, and not only so, but in this recognition I have created desirable conditions in their lives. Your realization of the good efforts of my followers proves to you that they have the key to success and prosperity, to health, happiness, vigor, and strength. You can see that my followers will not be failures in any good endeavor, for so long as they project the spirit of honesty, competence, and truth, they build upright conditions in their lives. So can it be with all men universally, and with all governments internationally. When God is reckoned in the affairs of the people, abundance will take the place of scarcity and want. There will be a full and a plenty of food, of clothing, of coal, gasoline, rubber, and all other commodities rationed and withheld from the masses. Times have been that men sought the blessing but not the blesser. But I say, unless humanity in this day tears in twain the veil of ignorance and admits the light of righteousness, seeking the life and freedom of the Almighty through the recognition of the manifested power of God, they shall not taste of the freedom they seek. This is a time for a wholehearted consecration to the principles of democracy, which is to God unadulterated. For the evil of this world is seeking to destroy the good of the world, to empower the throne of righteousness and bring all nations in and under the reign of dictatorialism, selfish power, and sin. It is for this cause that God in righteousness, justice, and truth is magnified in the hearts of the children of men. I am paving out the way by putting into action the actual principles of democratic government. None need wonder how to make democracy work. None need doubt that it can work. Millions following me through honesty, competence, and truth have proven the desirable results of democratic living. By virtue of this fact, my true followers enjoy a full and a plenty in the midst of national poverty and want. It is a matter of impossibility for them to stand in need of any good thing. By harmonizing with the giver of life and fulfilling the principles of justice, equality, and peace, they produce abundance in their lives, and this is not a supposition. It is a positive reality. Hence I declare, as with an individual, so with a nation, and as with a nation, so with all nations combined. The sincerity of the people and of the nations to overcome Hitlerism will cause them to seek the way of God, for nothing short of God can save humanity from the savagery, brutality, barbarism, and bestiality of Hitlerism. We can produce a free world by harmonizing, cooperating, and unifying one man with the other, moving extremely opposite from the division, hate, and strife of Hitlerism. Let us put democracy in action and put Hitlerism out of action. Only when this is done will democracy spread its wings of freedom over the earth, and all men shall know the reality of that which they have been praying for. Thus can men become to be as this leaves me, as I am well, healthy, joyful, peaceful, lively, loving, successful, prosperous, and happy, in spirit, body, and mind, and in every organ, muscle, sinew, joint, limb, vein, and bone, and even in every atom, fiber, and cell of my bodily form. Respectfully and sincere, I am Reverend M. J. Divine, better known as Father Divine. Peace. December the 8th, 1943, ADFD, Father Divine writing to Mrs. Helen Hitchcock of Southgate, California. My dear Mrs. Hitchcock, your letter of the 30th ultimo is received. I appreciate knowing that you received the sum of $25 from a follower of mine for a debt she felt she owed you. Through the spirit of my mind and the mind of my spirit, I am teaching the people to put their gifts and talents to an exchange. The very attributes that make the Constitution supreme are inherent in the hearts and lives of the people, and it is for this cause that I am spiritually awakening them from their dormancy, cracking atoms of freedom within them, that precious gift of freedom might be extended in their lives and produced in the nation governmentally. Freedom has been misused in America, for men think they are free to commit all sorts of vices and crimes. They think they are free to rob a man of his dues and to get away with all kinds of schemes and for personal advancement and gain. But there are two kinds of robbers and two ways to rob a man. One, the way a stealthy bandit does it, and the other, the way a good many of our lawmakers do it. Nevertheless, I came to free the people and to awaken them to the true values of freedom. By the grant of the Constitution for the freedom of religious worship, I have caused millions to step out on its promise and to go forth in the right, doing the things they are convinced are right. Hence, millions are volitionally inspired to pay up their back bills and obligations. They are intuitionally led to put democracy in action in their private business and affairs, and that is why you will find my followers representing that unity, outpictured in the Bill of Rights. They represent the America the people talk about for the post-war days, yet I have been producing that America even in the pre-war days, and I am producing it here and now, and shall continue my advances until Americanism is lived by every American. This old corruptible world shall be a fit place to live in after all. I am educating the people to the truth, to the ideals they have but abstractly understood. Our little schoolchildren shall grow up with the right concept and recognition of Americanism, of unity, justice, and brotherhood. They shall know it works because they shall see it in evidence wheresoever they go, and they shall become cooperators and participators in this true and living way, the great American way of life. Although I preach Americanism, my aim is universal, for as I build up America according to its supreme standards, I am building toward world peace and unity, establishing that long-sought-for utopian government where all men and all nations are one, and there is no division among them. Thus shall freedom in expression upon the virtues of honesty, competence, and truth create right conditions for man, and all shall eventually come into this way and be as this leaves me, as I am well, healthy, joyful, peaceful, lively, loving, successful, prosperous, and happy in spirit, body, and mind, and in every organ, muscle, sinew, joint, limb, vein, and bone, and even in every atom, fiber, and cell of my bodily form. Respectfully and sincere, I am Reverend M.J. Divine, better known as Father Divine. Peace. May 22nd, 1943, AD-FD. Father Divine writing to Mr. L.F. Thieling of Orangeburg, South Carolina. My dear Mr. Thieling, your letter of the 20th is at hand, and I sincerely appreciate knowing that one of my followers has made restitution in the amount of $10 for relief previously received from your city. Even as Miss Lucy has paid this obligation of 9 years' standing, so am I causing millions to do likewise. My followers are no longer aliens in heart and mind, but by the spirit of Americanism exemplified, they are producers of the characteristics of democracy, and are successful, prosperous, and independent. If this nation would employ its most powerful weapon, unity, by eradicating all alien characteristics from the nation, the Axis would be defeated almost overnight. But as much as the people hate Hitlerism, if those same characteristics of prejudice, aggression, graft, greed, and division are found within this government, then this country is bringing upon itself, firstly, whatsoever it desires to come to Hitler. The characteristics Hitler has impregnated in millions, causing them to be even unwillingly subject to violence, would destroy the entire civilization of men if they were given free access. Yet those same characteristics you can find within this nation, even among some of our officials of government. But the cosmic forces of nature are working hand in hand with Americanism to bring about real democracy internationally. Hence, wheresoever Hitlerism is seen to exist, the floods and tornadoes, pestilence, famines, and disasters will strike without discrimination to destroy it. If you did not know the mystery, you would think that God was helping Hitler by causing such floods as has not been seen since 1844, according to the press, to cover thousands of acres of land in this country already sown in crops, and wash them out, besides making thousands homeless. But even as all righteous-minded people desire to see the world free from aggression, prejudice, division, and strife, so are the cosmic forces of nature, better known as the hand of God, fighting against those same evils. I do not speak from hearsay or theoretically when I say there is Hitlerism within this nation, for I personally went through 32 lynch mobs in the southern states, endeavoring to pave the way for the enactment of real Americanism, that the millions of underprivileged citizens might enjoy equality, liberty, and justice. 32 times the unconstitutional, alien-minded, so-called citizens who rose in opposition to me sought to kill me, as they had many others, thinking they could prevent the enactment of democracy. But my spirit and my mind brought me out unharmed to lift for the world a standard of Christian democracy. You can plainly see, if this nation desires to be free from the disasters, famines, pestilence, and bloodshed that will continue to come upon the people, then those who are in authority must fight Hitlerism at home and within their own souls, even as they are fighting abroad, by bringing an end to segregation and discrimination, and allowing this people to unite together, even as God intended they should in the beginning, when out of one blood he created all nations. Even as I have brought the perfection of a utopian government to fruition under my personal jurisdiction, and made millions successful, prosperous, and happy, so can I do the same for all humanity, if they will enact the principles of real Americanism and unite together according to the request of Jesus. I pray that they may be one, even as we are one. When this is done, Americanism shall evangelize the nations, and there will be no division among them, but all will have the opportunity of becoming to be even as this leaves me, as I am well, healthy, joyful, peaceful, lively, loving, successful, prosperous, and happy, in spirit, body, and mind, and in every organ, muscle, sinew, joint, limb, vein, and bone, and even in every atom, fiber, and cell of my bodily form. Respectfully and sincere, I am Reverend M.J. Devine, better known as Father Devine. Peace. October 24th, 1945, ADFD. Father Devine writing to Mrs. Nina Seward of London, England. My dear Mrs. Seward, your letter of the 16th is received in appreciation of the abundant blessings you have received through your faith and belief in me. As you make practical, scientific, and real in your daily work and occupation your knowledge of God and the working principle of my teaching, you draw others to me and cause them to rise above the limitations of the mortal version of things into the glorious freedom of the sons of God. Live your beliefs. Make tangible and practical your high concepts of my law of brotherhood, of Christianity, and of democracy, even as my followers live our Constitution and enact the Bill of Rights in their homes, in their business, and in every community. Thus, others will get the reality of the truth as they see it in operation in your life and affairs, and they will desire to be, even as you, happy, independent, and prosperously free. You can show the people that God is in the land by the very system of operation in your business as you lower the price of your work, if you have not already done so, selling it at a price lower than the prices of the same work found elsewhere. By this you become to be a blessing to the public as well as to yourself, and you cause true evangelism to go forth among the people in fulfillment of the law of democracy, Christianity, and brotherhood. Upon this foundation, you will be at peace, enjoying the privilege of becoming to be as this leaves me, as I am well, healthy, joyful, peaceful, lively, loving, successful, prosperous, and happy, in spirit, body, and mind, and in every organ, muscle, sinew, joint, limb, vein, and bone, and even in every atom, fiber, and cell of my bodily form. Respectfully and sincere, I am Reverend M.J. Devine, better known as Father Devine.